I am a junkie, a true startup junkie. The energy from seeing an idea or project succeed, nurture the next, and you'll end up as a serial entrepreneur. The word junkie is not randomly chosen. It's because startups and entrepreneurship can be highly addictive, but also have strong side effects you have to be aware of. However, an addiction doesn't have to be all bad, but you have to learn how to control it before you can really succeed. So how did I end up in this life of endless craving for creation? Are people born into being an entrepreneur, or is it something you can actually learn? My first venture, if you can call it that, is related to where cash was easiest found, at least so I've heard. At the bank. So, at the age of 4, all dressed up as a cowboy with toy gun and everything, I stormed into the local bank. Hands up! This is a robbery! The profits wasn't as good as I hoped for, you might say. But as I grew older, my projects got a bit more legit. But they always have a strong commercial aspect to it. And that's very important when it comes to being a successful entrepreneur. I have no shame in saying that making money is a big motivation in my projects. This is not from the bank robbery, by the way. So, work for passion or work for money? For me, entrepreneurship is about making money out of passion. If you don't have a strong commercial interest, you'll have a hard time as an entrepreneur. Passion for your field of work, your product, your business is just as important as passion for making the bucks itself. Among successful entrepreneurs, 70% has making money as their biggest motivation. That's no wonder maybe, but when it comes to statistics, one of the biggest myths might be that entrepreneurs doesn't need education. Well, 95% of all successful entrepreneurs have minimum a bachelor degree. 70% are also married while launching their first business. Being an entrepreneur involves much more than yourself. The core of your team might be the one you have the closest. And how many that actually stayed married after their first business, the study actually didn't tell. I think being an entrepreneur is something you have in your blood. And as you've seen so far, I started early. When I made a puppet show, for example, like here, and even that was done with cash in mind. I don't know if everyone sees it, but there's actually a cash slot in front of this homemade theater. Early in my career, I also polished shoes outside the very same bank I earlier robbed. I baked and I sewed tablecloths for the local Christmas market. Actually, all of this was done before I even started school. And I remember being so small that I didn't reach down to the pedal on the sewing machine. So I got a friend of mine sitting underneath and pushing the pedal on my command. For a small cut of the profit, of course. When I was 10, I bought 15 hens and started to sell eggs. I sold ice cream on the beach for several years. I bought a 10-pack for 18 kroners and sold them on for 10 NOK each. I think I actually had the same hourly pay as an engineer at the time, at least for the small half hour I worked every day. I bought fabrics and I made tulips, which I sold to our summer house neighbors. Neighbors was the best customers because they never said no. When I was 12, I started selling Christmas trees, and I did that actually for the next 16 years. Being an entrepreneur can often be a lonely travel. So having co-founders is therefore great, because you can find people with the skills that you're lacking. Finding the right co-founders can be a challenge, but I have some criteria you need to tick off. What are their goals, and do they correlate with the ones you have? If not, you can end up having several captains sailing different routes. Do they contribute to the venture, and what do they bring to the table? and that has to be something else that future employees can't fill. Last but not least, they must have, or at least should have, the same drive, passion, and pace as yourself. There's several places now where we see economic depression. And for many people, especially politicians, the answer on making new jobs is through entrepreneurship. I think that is not only wrong, but it can put people into harm's way. Being an entrepreneur is not a 9-to-5 job. It's not something you can take vacation from. The idea of being an entrepreneur might sound intriguing, but people don't have a clue or sense what they're talking about until they've actually been there themselves. After finishing school, I actually moved on from polishing shoes and robbing banks. I've been on a fast track on in corporate jobs. I started by establishing the Center for Entrepreneurship at the University of Stavanger, where I was the director for a year. From there to an IT company, building that from 0 to 32 employees in just 1.5 years. From there to a headhunting companies, where I was a part of growing that from 4 to 16 people and double the turnover in just 1.5 years as well. From there to establishing the Norwegian office for a large international company within oil and gas contractors. But after my last corporate job ended, I stood before a choice. Should I keep on building businesses for others, or should I take the leap and also the risk and do it myself 100%? This might be the most important lesson I want to share with you. People talk a lot. Someone should, it would be great if someone, what if? Well, stop talking and make it happen. That's how many of my projects have seen the light of day. Putting words into action before someone else even had the time to think it through. And in actually most cases before I had the time to think them through. 2 years ago, I needed an office. That ended up in buying a large property and building one of Norway's leading innovation factories for growth companies. It's called Innovation Dock. It runs fully booked and will, at the end of this year, house over 50 innovative growth companies that all shapes the future. It was made possible thanks to like-minded, crazy, and maybe also fearless co-founders, and maybe also a bank that had almost the same description. We've been into deep water several times during these projects, and it's been far more demanding than what we've thought. But we pulled it through in the end. After my studies, I felt that the city was missing a good networking arena for young professionals, so I made my own. It's called TEDxArendal. It consists now of over 6,000 members, and we have 300 to 400 people at each event. We also have a mentoring program, which consists of 30 and counting top executives, which is mentors for our coming leaders. When I needed a sales network, I didn't find a suitable one, I made one. It's called Semaforum. It consists of 30 local businesses, which meet every second week for lunch to exchange sales leads and references. Passion can lead to so many things. Passion for food, passion for small producers, and craft work, for example. So 2 weeks ago, we opened Stavanger's first indoor food market with over 30 local producers. And while we're at it, we also started building a microbrewery. So if you have an idea, don't be too protective, share it. Find the right team around you, and of course, make it happen. An idea belongs to the one who sets it to life. So, how manage the build of several companies and being a serial entrepreneur, or a startup junkie if you like? Prioritizing and time management is crucial, and it might also be one of my weakest points. There's always a project, a company, a client that need your work and attention. Combining entrepreneurship and being a dad for 2 kids, sacrifices are hard to avoid. As I said when I started, being a junkie has its downsides and side effects. Family always comes first, but it's hard to be successful without affecting the family. You lose friends because you don't have time for them. I even had to pass on a good friend's wedding because work required me. Sacrifices is inevitable. It's something you have to get used to and have to learn how to live with. Determination is a very important factor of success. There's one person I've learned a lot from when it comes to this. I have to take you through a quick story first, a personal story. It's one of my projects that are based purely on passion. 13 years ago, I was a part of a group building a school in Tanzania. Long story short, some years later, Mary, who was 4 years at the time I was down there, needed a life-saving surgery. Money got fundraised, and surgeries and flights to India got booked. But sometimes things doesn't go according to plan. Instead, Mary died during a preliminary surgery in Tanzania. Last year, it was time to go back. A big problem in Africa is the conditions for children with disabilities. Thought of as a curse, hidden away, or even worse. This is Primus. He's 1 year old. That's one of the pictures. He's just a couple of kilos. When a daycare center for intellectually disabled children found him, hidden away. He's been lying on one side his whole life and had severe damages from this. The daycare center was desperately needing new facilities. So in a couple of months, I fundraised enough to build a new center, but also a community farm, and I helped them buy 2 vans to get the kids in to the daycare center during the rain season. It's now built, and is of course called Mary's House. If you haven't guessed it by now, I like high pace, great projects, but maybe also a good challenge. Like surprising my mother on her 70-year-old birthday to join me on this trip to Tanzania. My mom has been ill a lot in her life, both from being hit by a car as a little girl, but also from having psoriatic arthritis. So it was with great attention I had, without her knowing, booked a climb of the world's highest freestanding mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, 5,895 meters high. Determination is something you can learn. It's important to find good people to learn from. And when it comes to determination, I think this video speaks for itself.
Vi er I regnskogen, og nå har vi hatt lunsj nedi her, og vi har hvilt bitte litt, men det beste er å holde det I gang hele tida.
I går startet vi på, ikke 2000, men vi startet på 1490, og endte på 3000. I dag har vi gått fra 3000 til 3860.
Ja, vi har en halv dag I morgen også, men nå skal vi jo hvile resten av dagen, så jeg tror innen I morgen tidlig så vi like kvikke. Kanskje spiste jeg litt for mye av den suppa, men jeg må trykke ned. Det ikke så lett.
Kvalm?
Ja.
Ja.
Jeg utslitt. Og så har jeg 2 netter siden jeg har sovet. Nå ser jeg skjelver.
Angrer du for turen?
Nei.
Skal du til topps?
Jeg har tenkt meg det.
Vi bor på 3950 nå. Vi skal ikke så veldig mye høyere opp I dag. Vi skal noen 100 meter opp. Vi står her blant annet veggen bak meg, Branko-Wall. Hatt litt neseblod på morgenen og spydd litt, men det vist bare bra. Sier de. Så bare gi gass, god stemning.
Try, I think you definitely will succeed because you have it in here.
Yes,
but nice
you have
and
to
easy.
think in here. You have to think about it.
The man in the end there was Pat Falvey, a world-renowned adventurer who's completed the 7 summits twice, including Mount Everest from both sides. Getting a short input and feedback along the way is priceless, on mountains as in startups. Not to make it a cliche, but there are many things that can be learned from a climb like this. And not at least from my mom's willpower, determination, but maybe also stubbornness. Unfortunately, on the night we set out for the summit, we hit the worst weather and a storm, and the worst weather at Kilimanjaro for the last 3 years. And it was the worst cold I've ever experienced. So, be determined, maybe a bit stubborn, push yourself, find the right team around you, set your mind to it, learn from the people around you. Follow your passion, take the leap, but also the risk that comes with it. And make it happen, then you'll succeed.